Ella waited until after dinner, after the dishes were done and the kitchen was quiet, to drop the bomb. She sat across from me, hands folded on the table like she was about to give a presentation at work. There wasn't even a hint of nervousness in her face. "I need to tell you something, and I hope you'll be open-minded about it," she said, tone calm like she was pitching a new grocery store or something. I was wiping down the counter when she spoke. I tossed the towel aside and sat. "Okay, what's going on?" She nodded like she'd rehearsed it. "I've been seeing someone. His name's Rob. He's on my team at work. Nothing has happened yet, physically, but we've gotten close, emotionally close. I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of thinking. I think this is an opportunity for growth, for both of us. Before we start, how's your day going, and where are you joining from?" I stared at her, waiting for the joke to land. It didn't. "You're telling me you're about to start an affair, and that's supposed to be good for us?" My voice cracked on the last word. She didn't flinch. "I wouldn't call it an affair. I think of it as evolution. We've been married for almost 10 years, Ben. People grow. Relationships can grow too." I pushed my chair back slightly, trying to keep myself grounded. "So what? You grow by hooking up with a coworker? That's the growth plan?" "It's more than that. Rob and I connect. He gets where I'm coming from. And I think if you looked into it, you'd see this isn't a betrayal. It's a shift. I've sent you some articles, podcasts. Did you get them?" That's when I realized she'd been setting this up. The links she'd been texting me about redefining marriage, the "have you ever felt stuck?" talks at night. I thought it was just late-night philosophy crap. Turns out it was pre-gaming her exit strategy. "You've planned this," I said, quieter now. "You've been softening me up for weeks." "No, I've been preparing both of us for something better." I blinked hard. "Something better. You think cheating on your husband with some guy from work is better? It's not cheating, not if we're honest." I stood up. "You're unbelievable." She stayed in her seat like she was the adult and I was throwing a tantrum. "I'm trying to do this with transparency and respect." I laughed once, sharp. "You think this is respect?" "I want us to stay close. I just also want to be free." I didn't respond. I walked out of the kitchen, straight to the garage, needing space before I said something I couldn't pull back. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness. It was something colder, something I didn't recognize yet. I stayed in the garage until the air got too thick to breathe. When I came back inside, Ella was curled up on the couch scrolling through her phone like it was any other Tuesday. She looked up, smiled, and said, "I figured we could talk more this weekend, no pressure." I didn't answer. I just went upstairs, got in bed, and stared at the ceiling while she brushed her teeth like she hadn't just shattered something between us. The next morning, she poured me coffee and kissed me on the cheek like we were fine. I played along, didn't ask questions, didn't bring up Rob. She acted like the conversation never happened, like her revelation was just another conversation couples have, like comparing kitchen tile samples or debating a new SUV. That first day was the hardest. I expected guilt, tears even. Instead, I got links. Midday, she texted me an article titled, "Deconstructing Monogamy, A Path to Emotional Liberation." An hour later, it was a TED Talk by some yoga guy with a man bun preaching freedom through shared intimacy. She added a heart emoji after that one. I almost threw my phone at the wall. By day 3, I had stopped reacting altogether. She took my silence as progress, or maybe consent. I couldn't tell which. "I think we're in the early stage of something really powerful," she said one night, reading from a highlighted book. "It's called relational autonomy. You're still yourself, I'm still myself, and we choose each other from a place of freedom." "That sounds like something people say right before they leave," I said, not looking up from my plate. She grinned like I'd passed a quiz. "No, that's the old way of thinking. This is about expansion." I nodded, said nothing. "While you're listening, tell us which country you're watching from." I started watching her, quietly. She wasn't careful with her phone. I never touched it, but I paid attention. Who she smiled at while texting, which rooms she disappeared into when she answered a call. Her eyes didn't light up for me anymore. They lit up for someone else. She made sure I kept getting resources. A YouTube playlist titled "Modern Love is Nonlinear," a PDF about uprooting marital conditioning. I didn't argue. I acted like I was absorbing it. I even repeated a few phrases back to her, stuff like, "It's interesting how we define possession through marriage," and "Intimacy doesn't need exclusivity, right?" She loved it, and I hated her for it. The more I leaned in, the more confident she got. She'd talk about Rob like he was just a friend, then get real quiet if I asked anything deeper. "Don't be insecure," she said once. "That's not attractive." Like she was critiquing my posture. That's when I started realizing this wasn't new for her. This wasn't some spontaneous awakening. It was a rollout. I'd been managed, pushed slowly toward the edge while she made room for someone else in her life, and in our house. I started keeping notes, just bullet points, times, dates, little changes in her routine, when she wore perfume on a random Wednesday, when she picked a new ringtone and smiled when it chimed, when she left her laptop open just long enough for Slack notifications to pop up with Rob, heart, next to a message preview. I didn't need to hack her phone, not yet. I just needed to stay quiet, stay sharp, and wait. There was a pressure building in my chest, but I swallowed it. She thought I was adjusting, that I was learning. But I wasn't. I was watching, cataloging. The scariest part wasn't that she was lying. It was that she believed what she was saying, that she'd convinced herself this was growth, that destroying me was somehow noble, that if I just read the right book, I'd thank her for the pain. I didn't let any of that show. I still made the coffee, still nodded along, still smiled when she talked about her journey. But in my head, I was already off the map. One night after she fell asleep, I slipped her phone off the nightstand and carried it into the bathroom. The screen lit up without a passcode. She'd disabled it weeks ago for trust. I propped the door shut with my foot and installed a tracking app I'd researched earlier that day. 10 minutes later, I had access to everything. Texts, emails, GPS, even deleted messages. The next morning, I laid beside her like nothing had changed while the app mirrored her phone to mine in real time. By noon, I was watching her talk to him. Rob was worse than I imagined. Not crude, not flirty. Worse, intimate, thoughtful. He sent her playlists with dumb titles like, "For When Your Light Dims." She responded with, "You always know how to bring me back." He called her, "my favorite mind." She called him, "my real mirror." It made my skin crawl. She hadn't just strayed. She'd relocated emotionally. She leaned on him the way she used to lean on me, back when our inside jokes still meant something, and our Saturday mornings weren't quiet. She told Rob things I never heard. "Ben thinks this is still about marriage. He doesn't get that I'm past that structure." Another one, "He's watching me, but I don't think he sees me." And the one that hit hardest, "I don't want to live a small life anymore." I read it again, slower. A small life. Before we go deeper, share which city or country you're watching from. I never saw her type it, but I watched the words appear. Real-time pain. That was new. The relationship wasn't physical, yet. But it was coordinated. They had a rhythm. Inside language. Code names for things. They called me the basement, which I guess was supposed to mean something like low energy or dull. Rob would say, "How's the basement today?" And she'd reply, "Flooded." The rage didn't come like I expected. What came instead was precision. I started screenshotting everything, creating folders, organizing timestamps. My stomach stayed cold and flat. Then I found the trip. They'd been planning it for over a month, some bullshit wellness weekend upstate. She told me it was a solo writing retreat. Rob had booked the cabin under a fake name and used a prepaid card. Ella was bringing wine and "that book I want to read in bed while you talk about your scars." I put the phone down and just stared at the wall for a while. It wasn't the sex, not yet anyway. It was that she didn't see me at all. I was furniture, a propriedad, some guy holding her history while she built a new version of herself, with someone else, right in front of me. The app pinged again. Another message from Rob. "Don't let him guilt you. This is the most honest version of you I've ever seen." And her reply, "Thank you for saying that. I needed to hear it tonight." That's when I stopped reading. I already knew enough. I didn't feel jealous, not even angry, not in the usual way. What I felt was exact, measured. I was studying betrayal in high definition, and now I knew the layout. She thought she was enlightened, thought I was too frozen to catch on. She had no idea who she was living with. I sat at the kitchen table the next morning and drank my coffee slowly, watching her make a smoothie like we were just two people with nothing between us but sunlight and chia seeds. She told me the dates of her writing retreat again. as if I hadn't already read the entire itinerary the night before, including the part where Rob was bringing the good bourbon and his guitar. "That's next weekend," she said, smiling. "I'm really looking forward to it. I need time to reset." I nodded. "Yeah, that makes sense." That's all I gave her. No pushback, no warning, just a steady tone and a practiced blink. She leaned over and kissed my cheek like I was her supportive little sidekick, then walked upstairs to get ready for work. That was the last time I let her touch me without consequence. I cleared my schedule that day, took sick time, started writing things down, real notes this time, lists, timelines, dates, passwords, everything that could give me leverage later. While you're here, drop a comment with the city or country you're watching from. Then I opened the guest room closet and pulled out a small suitcase, the blue one she used for yoga retreats and weekend wine tastings with her sister. I laid it on the bed and unzipped it slow, like it might bite me. I grabbed a few of her clothes, nothing dramatic, just pieces she'd worn around Rob, a green sweater she once called her safe space top in a text to him. The jeans, he said, made her look wildly alive. I folded them neatly, then her copy of The Body Keeps the Score and the lavender sleep mask she only used when she wanted to reclaim her dreams. Into the suitcase, quiet and simple. I wasn't kicking her out, not yet, but I was cutting her out, piece by piece, starting with the objects that didn't belong to us anymore. They belonged to whatever version of herself she was selling to him. I didn't rush. This was about control, reclaiming it, not from her, but from the part of me that wanted to burn the house down just to feel something. At night, I kept smiling. I asked her what snacks she wanted for the trip. I offered to book her a massage at the retreat. She beamed, told me how lucky she felt that we were mature enough to have this kind of relationship. "Maturity," I said. "Yeah, that's what this is." She didn't hear the venom. By Thursday, I'd moved the packed suitcase to the back of the guest closet, hidden but ready. I didn't want her to notice anything had shifted yet. The performance had to stay airtight. She came home that night rambling about some new podcast, something about uncoupling with grace. I let her talk. I even asked follow-ups. She sat on the couch with her legs folded under her, sipping tea and telling me how she felt like she was finally stepping into her full self. I started to realize that our marriage hadn't ended suddenly. It had eroded slowly while I blinked through meetings and paid the mortgage. By the time she told me about Rob, the thing we had was already gone. I'd just been standing in the wreckage, mistaking the dust for walls. But now I saw it for what it was. This wasn't a relationship. It was a stage. And I was done playing the fool. I didn't tell anyone. Not my brother, not my coworker who'd noticed I'd gone quiet. Not even my mom when she texted about visiting next month. This was mine, my process, my information. And it wasn't anger driving me anymore. It was logistics. She wanted expansion. She could have it, but not here. Not with me pretending like she hadn't torched the blueprint and handed the match to someone else. Saturday morning came fast. She had her bag open on the bed, half packed already, humming some song I didn't recognize. Probably one of Rob's playlists. She moved around the room like she was prepping for a photo shoot, trying on jackets, checking angles in the mirror, asking what shoes looked more spontaneous. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "The brown ones," I said. She smiled like we were a team again. I thought so too. I watched her fold a tight black tank top and tuck it between a yoga hoodie and her favorite worn-out jeans, the ones with the little rip above the thigh, subtle but strategic. "How's the weather up there?" I asked, even though I'd already checked the hourly forecast on the cabin's town website. "Low 70s, she said, barely looking up. "Cooler at night. I packed layers." "Smart." She turned and held up a silk slip. "Too much?" I shrugged. "Depends what message you're sending." She smirked, tossed it in anyway. "Quick note. Before we go further, drop a comment. What city or country are you listening from right now?" I stayed helpful, grabbed her charger when she asked, found her travel mug, nodded when she practiced her "I just need time for myself" speech in front of the mirror. The words felt rehearsed, like she'd given this talk before, maybe even to herself. When she started zipping up the suitcase, I moved to her side. "You'll do great," I said. She touched my arm. "Thanks for being so understanding. Really, it means a lot." I kept my face steady. "Show them what you've got." Her face lit up, like she was proud of me. If she noticed the shift in my tone, she didn't show it. She just kept moving, all energy and freedom, like she was floating towards something bigger, and I was just the guy watching her from the shore. We walked downstairs together. She double-checked her phone, her keys, her printed directions. She said she didn't trust GPS once you got past the toll roads. She asked if I'd water the plants while she was gone. I said of course. At the door, she looked back like she was about to say something deep. Instead, she gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and said, "See you Sunday." I opened the door for her. "Have a great time." She left with a bounce in her step, dragging her suitcase behind her like she was heading off to camp. I stood there until the sound of the wheels disappeared down the driveway. Then I closed the door and locked it. I didn't smile, not exactly, but something moved in me. Not joy, not satisfaction, just a click, like a gear sliding into place. She thought she was winning. She had no idea I'd already started clearing the board. Her suitcase was packed. So was mine. As soon as her car disappeared, I walked straight to my laptop and opened the mirrored feed. Her messages started rolling in by the time she hit the freeway. Rob sent her a photo of the cabin porch. Rustic wood, string lights, 2 glasses already set out. She replied, "I can already breathe easier just looking at that." He sent back, "Your space is waiting." I clicked into the itinerary she'd tucked into a shared folder they thought was hidden, named Workshop Notes. The details were almost surgical. Drive time, grocery stops, playlists, a sauna appointment. They even scheduled time for solo journaling, which I guessed was code for getting their story straight in case anyone asked. But the part that made my chest tighten wasn't the trip. It was everything underneath it. Rob wasn't just some fling. He was part mentor, part audience. Their conversations weren't flirty. They were built like a cult. He'd send quotes from books I'd never heard of, and she'd write back paragraphs about breaking out of performance-based love. He said, "You're not his wife anymore. You're your own force." And she said, "I never knew how small I'd made myself until you saw me." Before we keep going, real quick, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. I clicked into older threads, tracing it back weeks, months. He'd started as a work connection, offering feedback on her presentation decks, sharing conference invites. Then it turned, late-night emails, articles about embodied leadership, inside jokes about the domestic box, then pet names, then secrets. I didn't even exist in their conversations, except when I was something to shed. She wrote things like, "Ben still talks to me like I'm version 1 of myself." And worse, "I wish he could see me, but he's just not built for this." She didn't just betray the marriage, she buried it. She rewrote it as something that was always holding her back. And somehow, I wasn't even angry anymore, just clear. I started organizing the screenshots, labeling files. One folder for messages, one for photos, one for itinerary details. I copied everything to a password-protected drive and backed it up twice, local and cloud. It wasn't about proof for a courtroom, it was for me. So I could remember exactly what it was. No nostalgia, no backtracking, just facts. The more I read, the more I saw it. Ella wasn't just with Rob, she was becoming him. His words, his worldview, his contempt for anything that came before. She'd taken that language, freedom, expansion, awakening, and used it like a weapon. And she really believed it. That's what made it dangerous. She wasn't hiding from me. She thought she was evolving, that leaving behind everything we'd built was just part of conscious growth. I sat at the kitchen table and started researching. Not how to stop her. Not how to win her back. I was done being a participant in her reinvention fantasy. I looked up property division laws, quiet separation tactics, emotional detachment strategies. I watched videos of guys who'd gone through this exact thing. Some broken, some smarter. All of them changed. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to walk out with my head up, my spine straight, and my version of the story intact. The part that stuck with me after hours of reading was something simple. Don't try to fix it. Document it, then move. That clicked. I checked the feed one last time before logging off. She'd just arrived at the cabin. She texted Rob. Finally. The real world can wait. And I thought, good. Stay there as long as you need. Because when she came back, she'd find out the real world was already gone. She got back Sunday evening just before dark. The wheels of her suitcase scraped against the front steps, then the door opened like it always did. Same keys, same timing, same sigh as she stepped in and kicked off her shoes. "Hey," she called out. "I'm home." I stayed at the kitchen table with my laptop open, a spreadsheet on the screen. I didn't get up. I didn't fake a smile. She walked in behind me and kissed the side of my head. "Missed you." I closed the laptop. "How was the solo retreat?" She blinked. "It was, cleansing." I nodded once. Was Rob there the whole time, or did he show up later? She froze, hands still on the back of my chair. Her voice didn't break, but her eyes did. "What are you talking about?" "Don't do that," I said calmly. "I've seen the messages, the itinerary, the cabin reservation under his alias. I've seen everything, Ella." She backed up a step. "Ben, this isn't what it looks like. You said you needed space to write, to reflect. What you actually needed was a weekend with him, off the grid. Just be honest." She folded her arms, defensive now. "I wasn't hiding it to be cruel. I needed room to figure myself out without judgment. You needed a second life, and a co-star. You didn't just cheat, you built a story where I'm the obstacle." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, "I didn't mean for it to feel like betrayal. I've been doing the work." I kept my voice level. "You've been doing his work, talking like him, thinking like him, dismantling our life in pieces while pretending it's growth. Before I continue, tell me, what country are you listening from today?" She turned toward the sink, grabbing a glass just to keep her hands busy. "You have no idea how suffocating it was. You've always seen me a certain way, and I needed to break out of that. And your solution was Rob? A guy feeding you therapy buzzwords in exchange for sex and identity validation?" She spun back, eyes narrowed. "That's not fair. No, what's not fair is turning a decade-long marriage into a performance review. You didn't talk to me. You managed me, like a project that needed to be sunsetted. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did, deliberately, repeatedly, with a smile." She shook her head slowly. "It's not black and white, Ben." "I agree," I said. "That's why I didn't yell. That's why I didn't lose it. I wanted to hear how you'd explain this without lying again." Her voice dropped. "I don't know what I'm supposed to say." I leaned forward. "Say the truth. That Rob wasn't just an accident. That this wasn't about finding yourself. It was about replacing your life with a more flattering one." She stayed quiet. "I've seen the texts, Ella. The ones where you called me the basement. The ones where you planned how to explain your absence. You left me here, smiling, while you got your ego stroked by a guy who talks like a motivational poster." She looked like she'd been slapped, but I didn't stop. "You weren't exploring. You were escaping, and you made me your camouflage." Her throat tightened. "So what now?" I stood up slowly. "Now I stopped pretending." She searched my face for some hint of weakness, maybe even a flicker of hope. But I gave her nothing. She whispered, "I didn't think you'd find out like this." "That's the problem," I said. "You thought I'd never see you clearly." Then I walked out of the kitchen and left her standing there, holding the glass like it was the last thing tethering her to the version of herself she wanted me to believe in. She came upstairs maybe 20 minutes after I left her in the kitchen. No footsteps, no sighs, just soft movement, like she thought quiet would fix what truth broke. I was in the guest room, sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through housing listings. She stood in the doorway like she didn't know whether to knock. "Can we talk?" I didn't look up. We did. She came in anyway, slow and careful, like she was walking through broken glass. "I'm sorry for the way it all happened. I should have been more honest." I clicked to the next listing. "You think that's the issue?" Her voice was soft. "Then what is?" "You weren't confused," I said. "You were just hoping I'd stay blind long enough for you to land softer." That shut her up. She sat on the other bed across the room, her hands in her lap. "I didn't want to destroy us." "But you did," I said. "And now you're trying to manage the fallout, like a PR rep." "I'm still here," she offered. "That's not a selling point." She flinched but stayed put. "I want to fix this." I finally looked at her. "You can't fix something you dismantled by choice." Quick pause. "While you're watching, drop your city or country in the comments." She left after that. No drama, just quietly exited like she understood. Partially anyway. Over the next week, she acted like we were mid-disagreement, not mid-divorce. She asked if I wanted to go for a walk. I said no. She made dinner and left a plate for me. I didn't touch it. She said goodnight at my door and waited for me to say it back. I didn't. Her confusion grew fast. She'd expected a blow-up, yelling, maybe even begging. What she got was distance. Full, cold distance. No explanations, no outbursts, just walls she couldn't climb anymore. I stopped responding emotionally. I gave short answers, didn't ask follow-ups, didn't show interest. I went to bed early and woke up earlier. I stopped telling her where I was going. When I got home, she asked how my day was. I said fine and nothing else. I wasn't hiding. I was preparing. Each day I chipped away at the pieces of my life that included her. I moved files off our shared drive, took my name off bills, started boxing up old photos and stacking them in the closet. The kind of things you do quietly when you're almost done pretending. She tried to keep me engaged. We could try therapy. I said, "You already have a therapist. His name's Rob." She snapped, "That's not fair." I said, "You don't get to define fair anymore." Her power was gone. She knew it, but she didn't know how to live without it. She started second-guessing everything. She asked me if I was seeing someone. I laughed. Not a cruel laugh, just a dry, empty one. "You think this is about someone else?" "I don't know what you're thinking," she said. "You're not supposed to." I didn't give her access anymore. Not to my thoughts, not to my heart. She'd used that pass and lost it. But I wasn't rushing. I was building the exit brick by brick. I wasn't going to be dragged into her mess, her confusion, her version of things. I was carving my own way out, measured, private, solid. And every time I saw her trying to figure out what was happening inside me, I knew I'd already won something. She had Rob. She had her journey. She had her freedom. But she no longer had me. I met with the realtor on a Thursday afternoon, 2 towns over. Neutral office, polite smile, no questions I wasn't ready for. Told her I was considering a relocation, wanted to understand my options. She nodded like she'd heard it all before. Divorce without the drama. I didn't sign anything, not yet. But I got what I needed. Timelines, market value, next steps. It was real now. I wasn't fantasizing. I was mapping the exit. When I got home, the house felt thinner. Like it already knew. Ella was out with a friend. Talking things through, she said. I didn't ask who the friend was, didn't care. I went upstairs, grabbed the empty tubs from the hall closet, and started packing her stuff. Not in anger, not to send a message, just with clarity. Her books, the frame print she bought in Asheville, the bath salts she swore by but barely used, the robe that used to mean intimacy. All of it went into neat piles, folded, boxed, labeled, bedroom, bathroom, office. Her life, sorted. While you're watching, tell us in the comments. What country or city are you from? I left her suitcase by the door, the same one I'd packed weeks ago behind her back. Now it sat in the open. She could deal with it however she wanted. When she walked in later that night, the energy changed fast. She looked at the boxes, then at me. "What is this?" I stood, calm as ever. "It's the option you picked." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. "You wanted freedom. This is what it looks like." I didn't say I wanted to end us. "You didn't have to," I said. "You dismantled it piece by piece, then expected me to hold it up like it still mattered." She moved toward the boxes. "So that's it? You're done?" I looked her dead in the eye. "You wanted options, but this is the one you've got now?" She stared at me like I'd just vanished right in front of her. And maybe I had. I grabbed my keys, wallet, and phone, walked past her, out the door, didn't look back. The porch light stayed on behind me, flickering slightly. That was her problem now. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. She thought she was choosing freedom. She never realized I could choose it too.